Folks, I'm an Asian American, so I belong to the Asian American Pacific Islanders group. And as you know, White House has an AAPI initiative, and President Barack Obama has appointed Kiran Ahuja as the Executive Director of White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders community. And she is in our studio, and welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what's the mission of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders?
The White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders was reestablished by the President about a year ago, and it was created to increase access and participation of our community in the federal government.
Now, folks, AAPI consists of more than 30 countries. The population of AAPI in the United States is 16.6 million, and that's about 5.4% of the U.S. population. That's a significant number.
And we're one of the fastest growing communities, and we are slated to double that in 2050. Maybe it might be different depending on the 2010 census. I know that's a ways to go, but I think that what it does say is that across the United States, we're seeing tremendous growth, not only in, let's say, New York City or Seattle, but also in Atlanta, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, where I'm from, Wichita, Kansas, what we call emerging communities.
I mean, looking at the makeup of these AAPI communities, I just wonder, are their problems very similar?
Similar among each other?
Yes.
In some ways, yes. I think that, and those similarities also with other communities, the Hispanic and African American communities, whether we're talking about health disparities, health problems, poverty, lack of access to college, or high dropout rates in school, I often talk about the community as being, yes, very diverse and very complex, but there are some similarities of why it's important to bring us all together and to work together and be represented in the AAPI community.
Everybody believes that Asian Indian Americans are very rich. Oh, they open so many businesses and they make the most money of all American groups. And here I am reading that the Asian Indian Americans, there are 2.7 million of them, 7.9% Asian Indians live in poverty, 10.5% in Sri Lankan, 15.6% in the Pakistani community, 21.4% in Bangladeshi community. I never saw that coming.
Right. So, of almost 3 million of South Asian Americans in this country, and again, to that point of diversity, there is that economic diversity that exists in our community. For every spelling bee champion, there's also a South Asian taxi cab driver in New York. For every CEO or high-tech entrepreneur, there's also our members in our community and small businesses struggling every day, as we know many other Americans are, to keep up and to be able to survive and to take care of their children. So we have to acknowledge that diversity and dispel what we call the model minority myth.
Education, folks. Take a look at this. 9.5% of Asian Indians over the age of 25 have a less than a high school education. 7.3% Sri Lankan, 13.2% Pakistani community, 16.3% Bangladeshi. Those are huge numbers. I mean, as I understand it, Asian Americans, education is #1 with us. Right. How come there's so many of them that haven't even passed high school? Well,
I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, it definitely depends on the education of the family and the parents. Oftentimes, especially for newer Americans, there are challenges of whether it's the economic strain of working in this country. We often see that in the bigger cities in New York and LA. Not everyone comes to the U.S., especially in the South Asian community, as a doctor or as an engineer. I mean, we have a diverse background of South Asian Americans who come to this country. So those challenges of of trying to make it in this country also impact their children, the type of schools they go to, where they live, and especially if they don't have that support of their parents for whatever reason, because they're working 2-3 jobs, because they don't know the language well, so they can't assist their children through the U.S. School system, and we often find that as a challenge, not only for South Asian Americans, but for a lot of other Asian Americans. And in fact, there is a program that is similar to for the African American and Hispanic Americans, is what's called AAPIs. It stands for Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander Serving Institutions.
Wow.
And it's about 2 years old. It was created by Congress, by legislation, and it directs resources from the Department of Education and other federal agencies to support institutions that serve a significant number of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to address if you're the first person going to school from your family or to graduate from college, be able to direct some of those resources to those students. And so we're following suit from other communities that have received this type of support in the past.
By the way, these are some of the amazing statistics that I have seen. So I'm glad the White House has appointed AAPI and you as the new director. Now tell me a little bit about the mission. What is the mission of AAPI?
Well, the mission of the White House Initiative is to open the doors of government to our community. I mean, that's pretty much